My latest FPL draft has had close to 9 changes over the last few days. Transfers, pre-season information and data have driven these picks, and I'm going to share with you now who those players are and why I have picked them. So let's jump straight into the video and look at my Game Week 1 squad. Here we are with our Game Week 1 defenders and goalkeepers to kick us off into our squad. It's been a little bit of a tough one choosing a goalkeeper over the last few weeks, as we've not had many options as FPL managers, but I think 2 or 3 options have really emerged as favourites across the community. And for me, I would maybe agree with a lot of FPL managers that Flecken, Dean Henderson and David Raya are probably the favourite assets to own in FPL at the start of the season. For me, I've went with Flecken myself. I think, facing a few more shots than these other goalkeeping options, but, these shots are often from outside the box, just the way Brentford play and set up. That tends to be what happens. There's a lot of long shots that Flecken kind of has to save and be responsible for at times, but obviously in FPL, you do get your save points, so that is attractive in that way. And as well, defensively, Brentford aren't that bad of a team, putting okay numbers up normally, and seem solid against good teams in many points last season. So, with some of the harder fixtures that he has coming up with Brentford, it isn't nice to see, obviously, playing Liverpool the next few weeks as well for Flecken, but I think some save points at the price point he is, I don't think you can really complain. Let's move on to someone more interesting though. We have Trent Alexander-Arnold, a really attacking fullback type of player who's tucking into the midfield, and in Arne Slot's system seems to be getting quite a lot of game time, obviously, but a lot of action in terms of attack and returns. If we just look at the pre-season game that has been played literally 10 minutes ago, it finished, I believe. He actually assisted Diogo Jota's goal in the 30th minute, so that's always great to see, especially in pre-season, someone that you've picked doing quite well. And we'll come on to Hall in a second, but that's one of the reasons I've picked Hall, because pre-season has been impressive. But Trent, yeah, I think great option, good fixtures, and will do well in this new system. It's 7 million. Is a bit of a tricky price point, and in my last video I did say you're kind of paying that price for someone who is really premium, and I think it's definitely worth it in my opinion. Moving on though to alongside him, you've got Pedro Porro with, yes, mediocre fixtures over the kind of 7-6 game week period going forward, but these opening 2 fixtures of Leicester and Everton are quite good, especially with the Leicester away fixture opening up for Spurs. Of course, Solanke has just joined Spurs, and we'll get more onto that later. There's a bit of a hint of who's in the forward line, but yeah, Pedro Porro, great attacking player. Of course, I've shown you this in my last video, the kind of goal involvement for Pedro Porro at 0.3 across, some really good attacking options here in defence. You can't go wrong with Pedro Porro at 5.5, I don't think. If he was 6 million, you could definitely say there's definitely better options, but at 5.5, I think every 0.5 you can kind of save here and there, but also get good options is a really good investment, and I think Pedro Porro is that great investment at 5.5. Moving on to Lewis Hall though. It's interesting, having Lewis Hall in the team now. I kind of really wasn't banking on having any Newcastle sort of defensive assets because of the unsure, lineup they could be going for. Burn could definitely play at left back like he has done, but we've kind of seen a centre back partnership of Kraft and Burn a lot. We've seen Burn drop into that centre back role, obviously a fair chunk over this pre-season period. Hall at left back, I think, does have great potential there, especially if you can get consistent minutes, and at 4.5 million with Southampton as your opening fixture, amazing pick in my opinion, if the minutes are good and if he can really nail down game time over the long term. I really don't want it to be a short term pick, Lewis Hall. I think if he's in my team, I want to be sure that he will be starting games and will be getting a lot of minutes and contributing to my team with points on a consistent basis. On terms of defenders on the bench now, I'm just going to quickly glance over them. You got Robinson, who I spoke about in my last video. Good attacking data, in my opinion, and some real good fixtures over the first couple, which is really enticing. And I think Robinson is kind of going under the radar as a pick. Maybe that's because Fulham weren't the best team last year, but I feel as though with some nice additions in Emile Smith-Rowe, obviously the loss of I think it was it Paulinho that I think they lost in the midfield. That's going to be a bit of a hole to fill, but I think Fulham could be a decent team, especially at the start of the season, at least for FPL. I'm not even going to pronounce this defender's name right above my head here, but I've seen that this player has been getting a few minutes for Aston Villa at 4 million. I think he could be a slightly better option than Barco. There are some uncertainties about Valentin Barco in terms of, is he going to be actually getting good minutes in that position. There's been talk about other players at Brighton being able to play that sort of left wing back position, and Barco actually being dropping out. I think he missed the latest fixture against QPR for Brighton, which was a bit of a concern. We'll come to that section in a little bit, but yeah, this player here in front on top of my head, I'm not going to even try pronounce his name because I just know I'm going to get it wrong. But he's been playing for Aston Villa at sort of that, I believe it was right back position. But yeah, good minutes across pre-season, 4 million. Can't really go wrong. But yeah, that across the whole line there is a solid defence in my opinion. So let's move on to the midfielders now. And here we are with the midfield. As you can see, there are sacrifices made when you have, two premiums in this team. And the big thing for me is there's some really good value options across the midfield. You've got the likes of Salah in there, who is an amazing captain option, has good fixtures, and let's face it, is just Mohamed Salah, is an unbelievable footballer, probably one of the best wingers ever to play in the Premier League, so he speaks for himself. But the other three, I think I do have a right to explain why I've picked these players, and I'm going to show you just a little bit of why I have. Minter, unbelievable pre-season. I think the way Brighton are playing as well, with sort of these fast wingers trying to create something out wide and maybe working around that system. You've got the likes of Matoma and you've got the likes of Minter, who obviously Minter's had a fantastic pre-season, as we can see here. But yeah, I think these sort of players at 5.5 are good options if they get the minutes. It's the big worry with this sort of team, having players like Lewis Hall and Minter. You could say minute risks, but having high praise from managers, playing well in pre-season and seem to be fitting in to that sort of final squad coming up to the starting Premier League fixture. So yeah, I think Minter's a fantastic option. And Nkunku, I could rant and rave about Nkunku all day. Of course, you're looking at the Man City at home fixture there that he starts off with. It's not excellent. We have to face it. It really isn't. But when you look at how City sort of played against United in their Community Shield fixture, you can kind of maybe see some openings that a Chelsea side, I think, could exploit rather than a United side that kind of looked a little bit disjointed at times. Of course, Chelsea have looked disjointed across pre-season, but I think, quality players like Nkunku and Palmer could be getting some really good attacking returns, especially over the front course of the season, with some really good fixtures in there for Chelsea and a swing within the first couple of game weeks, which I quite like. Talking about fixture swings, we can talk about Emile Smith-Rowe here at 5.5 million. Sort of a new addition to the Fulham side. This could easily be a Brenton Diaz or maybe a teammate in Andreas at 5.5. I do like those options. Not so much compared to Emile Smith-Rowe. I do think Smith-Rowe will get good minutes. Maybe not across the first fixture of Man United away, but as you'll see now on the bench, we have a really good option of Morgan Rogers with a West Ham away fixture. I really wouldn't mind playing Rogers in his first fixture, especially with West Ham sort of being, a lot of recruitment coming in, sort of a new system they're going to be playing. I think they're going to have a rough start of the season, if I'm honest, West Ham. I don't think they're going to hit the ground running. I think some players will, but I think it will be a bit of a tough change for them starting off. But I do think later on in the season, after a few game weeks, West Ham players could be real options. You're looking at the likes of Kudus, Fulkrug, Jared Bowen, who could be really good picks later on down the line. So, yeah, but at the start of the season, I don't think they're going to be really hitting the ground running, which means Rodgers could come in for Emil Smith-Rowe if minutes are a real issue for Smith-Rowe. The sort of con with this team is the midfield. You're not looking at too much premium assets at all. You know, Salah and Nkunku are going to be in a lot of people's teams. You're really missing out on your Arsenal midfielders and maybe someone like a Bruno Fernandes or a Brennan Johnson or a Son. These type of players that, you know, can't really fit into this team, you are going to miss out on. But let's look at the forward, and it'll kind of make sense of why the midfield is a little bit downgraded. And here is the reason that the midfield has took such a big hit. You have Haaland and Salah in the same draft, which of course is a very, very difficult thing to kind of balance and have a sort of good overall team. You've got a new signing, Solanke, alongside Haaland here, who I think is going to be a fantastic option. You know, you've got the Spurs fixtures of Everton and Leicester in the first two. Great fixtures, obviously some harder ones in there, but with a striker like Solanke, I think, you know, if we look at some of his data here, if I can find his name, just there, Solanke, non-penalty expected goals, we'll click on that. You know, you're looking at some good numbers here. For someone who's played in a side at Bournemouth who necessarily aren't, you know, known for attacking football and being sort of, you know, that dangerous team, you then transfer Solanke to a team that aren't scared to attack and do play really attacking football. I think there's some real great opportunity for Solanke to kind of kick off and hit the ground running for Spurs. There is a tweet floating around of a quote from Ange Postecoglou. I can't quite find it on my Twitter at the moment. If I do, I will put a screenshot in. But the gist of the tweet is basically Ange Postecoglou likes to recruit players that he kind of knows that will hit the ground running. He did this with Van de Ven. I think it was almost two or 3 weeks before the first fixture, and he still threw Van de Ven in within the first few weeks of his management at Spurs. And like I say, hit the ground running. Spurs had a really, really great start to the season. So for me, Solanke will start game week 1, will get good minutes. So yeah, I think good pick. Obviously, it's just a lot of money to be having in a front line. But we'll move on to Isak now. Isak, penalty taker, Southampton at home, good fixtures, and a Newcastle side that is quite attacking. I love it. It's a great pick. And I think going without Isak is going to be a really, really, really difficult thing to do. I'd much rather go without a Haaland or a Salah than an Isak. I think Isak has, became fairly locked within my side alongside players like Nkunku and Trent. I think they're definitely going to be part of my game week 1 squad. But yeah, that front line is quite expensive. Midfield a bit cheaper across some assets, and that defensive line looks really strong. A 92% rating from Fantasy Football Hub really isn't that bad, and with 63.9 points predicted for the game week, it kind of comes in line with some of my anti-Haaland, anti-Salah drafts. So yeah, it's a good squad, but you can obviously see the con in the midfield there, having to play players like Minter and Smith-Rowe isn't great, and having sort of a £5 million cover option on the bench isn't always, the desired option you want to be going with. But other than that, I think it is a quite solid team. You've got good players in there that can make a difference, like the Solankes, and other nice differential options. I think Smith-Rowe will be a great differential option going through the season. But yeah, I'm quite happy with the team, to be honest. Captaincy on Salah. I think if you've got Salah in your team, whoever even he's partnered with deserves the armband with that game week 1 fixture. But yeah, decent squad in my opinion. Now, I just wanted to share this at the end of the video. Of course, there's so much talk to whether you go with Salah or Haaland or both, like my draft I've just shown you there. This draft, if I was asked right now, if the deadline was in a few minutes' time, who are you going with, Salah only or Haaland only? I would probably lean more towards having Salah only as a draft. And this is kind of the draft that I'm looking at the moment, where I would just have one of those players, just Salah, in the draft. And the changes are quite clear. João Pedro would come in, Haaland would come out. João Pedro, a penalty taker for an exciting Brighton attacking team, could be a really good option. The fixtures aren't necessarily amazing across here, but you know, you're looking at Ipswich at home fixture in game week 4, which is really, really nice. Diego Jota would actually join the side, which, you know, isn't always the best FPL pick because of just how injury prone he is. I think maybe across, 7 game weeks his points will be down, but I think maybe across the front 2 or 3 game weeks his points could be really, really good, and his minutes, most importantly, could be really good as well. Saka would join in with the side as well, a £10 million Arsenal midfielder. Fantastic player. We know the ability Saka has, and obviously a penalty taker for a fantastic side. Gabriel fills in here instead of Lewis Hall. Of course, Newcastle don't have the best defensive record, especially at the end of last season. That was apparent. But, Gabriel coming in here, a good attacking option in many ways off set pieces, which I think people tend to forget about when speaking about the Arsenal defence. Of course, there's the rotation risk there with Calafiori possibly coming into the Arsenal side, but I think across the first few game weeks, while Calafiori, Timber and those types of players get the fitness, Gabriel's minutes are going to be completely fine at 6 million. I think it's a really good option. Raya at 5.5 as well is a really good pick in goal. Obviously a big upgrade from Flecken in the last squad that you've just seen. But yeah, this would be the no Haaland draft, and of course all of the data and this team selection here has been brought to you by Fantasy Football Hub. Now, they have an amazing deal on at the moment where there's 50% off if you use my link in the description, and as well, if you don't win your mini leagues using their software, they will give you all of your money back. Terms and conditions do apply to that, so check that out. The link is in the description if you're interested in improving your FPL game drastically. Just to quickly outro the video, I want to give you a huge thank you if you're watching to this point now, and if you have enjoyed today's video, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Of course, I post weekly FPL content. I'm here all season as per usual, so don't be afraid to click that subscribe button and get involved this season. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.